Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. As you all can tell by the title, I already had my baby. I decided I wanted to film this video because whenever I was in the hospital having my baby, I couldn't find any other videos like this, and it was just like super hard to go through this alone. So I'm hoping that by making this video, I can reach the right people. So let's go ahead and get started. At 22 weeks, I went into the hospital for a routine ultrasound. I had an anatomy scan a few weeks before that, but they couldn't find everything they needed to see. So I went back about 3 or 4 weeks later and I had my ultrasound at 22 weeks on the dot. Whenever we got in there, I was just like super excited to see him. Right off the bat, the lady started kind of acting weird. She was like, "Is his head always this low?" She was just like acting weird and like it was making me nervous. She actually went ahead and brought in another person to help her with the ultrasound, and that's whenever I knew like something's not right. I could see where his head was on the screen and they wouldn't tell me anything. I was like asking them, "Is my cervix open? Can you just tell me that?" And they would not tell me. They said it wasn't their job. And then she was like, "I'm gonna go ahead and call your doctor." And then I just lost it. And I was just crying because I thought I was gonna lose my son. And it was just like the scariest moment I've ever experienced. I didn't know what to do or what to think. When they came back in, they were like, "Labor and delivery is gonna come down and get you." They came down and got me and they took me up to labor and delivery. And still, I just had no clue what was going on. Nobody would tell me anything. They wouldn't even let me walk. Finally, the doctor came in and talked to me and he was like, "On the ultrasound, there's no measurable amount of cervix there." He checked my cervix. They thought that it was gonna be like a lot more open, but it only ended up being a 1. The hospital that we go to is really small, so they decided to send me to a bigger hospital about an hour and a half away. They hoped that I could get a cerclage there. A cerclage is like whenever they stitch around your cervix to keep it closed. We got there that night and they checked my cervix again. Nothing had really changed besides they said that they could see my water bag. They decided that doing the cerclage was not a risk that they were willing to take just because the water bag was out, and they said that there was a big risk that they could pop it during the procedure. So basically I just had to sit there and wait. They started me on like some medicine to stop contractions, although I wasn't even contracting. I literally didn't even know I was dilating or anything. So I was in the hospital for a total of 3 weeks. And while I was there, I literally just had like the most traumatic experience ever. I had to have like an IV in obviously all the time just because they were always afraid like, "Oh, what if you have to go into labor?" My veins are like super hard to stick, I guess. And I literally probably went through like 15 or more like IVs while I was there just because they couldn't ever get it. Whenever we got there at 22 weeks, they told us, "Oh, your son only has a 20% chance of survival." And if he survived, they told us that he would have cerebral palsy or, you know, other neurological problems. And it was just like really scary to hear. Like nobody ever wants to hear that news about their child. And especially at the time, it felt like it was my fault. It felt like my body was like rejecting him in a way. And it was just like so hard to go through. We kind of just played it, you know, one day at a time. They said every day he stayed in was 2 less days he'd be in the NICU. And I just prayed and prayed and prayed. I was just hoping, so hopeful that he would stay in as long as possible. While we were there, they did ultrasounds quite a bit, and they determined that he would have like a lot of issues. They said that he had bilateral club feet. They said that he had a heart condition. They said that he had a possibility of having spina bifida. They said he had a possibility of having Down syndrome. There was just like a huge like list of things that they thought was wrong with our son. And every single time I received an ultrasound, it was just like something new was wrong with him. And it was just so hard to go through this because I just didn't know what was gonna happen. Nobody had like real answers. It was just like, "Oh, this might be happening." And it was scary. After 3 weeks of being in the hospital, I asked to go home because I never really progressed. I would have cramps like here and there, but they said I wasn't dilating. 24 hours after I went home, I started having contractions. And at first they were like 10 minutes apart, so I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna like go quite yet because I don't want to go back and be stuck there for another month if I don't have to be." So I just kind of waited it out and laid in bed all day. And then about 8 o'clock rolled by, 8 o'clock at night, and the contractions got a lot worse and a lot closer together. Waited a little bit longer. You know, I timed them on my phone. I was hoping that if I took a shower that the contractions would kind of like ease up and feel maybe a little bit better. So I got in the shower, and then by then it was just like unbearable pain. Couldn't even breathe through it. Like it was just really bad. I told Dylan, I was like, "Okay, we need to pack up our hospital bag. Like we have to go." So I threw a couple outfits in a bag and we drove up there. And that ride was the longest ride of my life. I didn't know if I was gonna make it to the hospital. I thought, "Oh no, I'm gonna have him in the car." Like it was just so scary. I didn't know if he was gonna survive once we got there. I didn't know you know, what to expect, especially with all these things that they thought was wrong with him. I didn't know what his chance of survival was at this point. It was just super scary and stressful. We got there pretty late. I think it was like 11 o'clock, and I was like, oh, thank God, like I made it. Like the whole ride there, I was just praying to God that he would let me make it to the hospital. I went inside and I just felt so relieved that I'd made it. We were waiting like to get checked in and stuff. They were taking their sweet time, of course, and I was just sitting there having contractions. Finally, they came and helped me, and they wanted me to go fill out paperwork. So I was sitting in there with them answering all their freaking questions. And then like she saw how many contractions I was having, and she was like, okay, let's go upstairs now. Like, I'll fill this out for you. So I got upstairs and they told me to get in a gown, and I went in the bathroom to change, and my underwear were just covered in blood. Sorry for the TMI. They were like, okay, let's just go lay down. Like, don't even worry about it. So I laid down in bed. I didn't even have a gown on. I was just laying there in my bra, like butt naked basically. They checked my cervix and I was at a 6. Right after they checked it, I was like, I think my water's breaking. And they looked down and I was just gushing blood. Like my water never broke. I just kept gushing blood. And I don't know why that was happening. They gave me a second round of steroid shots, and then they started me on magnesium, which is supposed to help him with his neurological type of stuff, I guess. They did all that, and I got an epidural. I have a super sensitive back, and the lady was getting so mad at me because I couldn't sit still, but like I was having contractions, and I just have like a super touchy back anyway. But finally I got my epidural, and I felt fine by then because I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't even feel when I was having contractions anymore. But I kept like gushing blood, and I was like, I don't know, like if I'm dilating anymore. So I had the nurse come back in, and the resident checked me, and I was at an 8, and she was like, okay, let's go ahead and break your water. We're gonna have this baby. They called everybody in, you know, everybody from the NICU was upstairs to get him, like, so they'd be there when he was born to help him. There was like a huge team of nurses and doctors, and they're helping me too. She came in, popped my water bag, and they were like, okay, it's go time. Mind you, I couldn't feel my contractions, so I didn't know when to push. So I was kind of just like pushing whenever. I got like part of his head out, and then they were like, okay, his heart rate is dropping. We need to get him out now. They went and got forceps. They gave me an episiotomy. So they cut me down, put the forceps in, and then I continued to push 2 more times, and then he came. I ended up ripping past that. I had a 3rd-degree tear. He was 25 weeks and 2 days. It was a time change, so time rolled back an hour, like right before he was born. So he was born at 1:57 a.m. the second time, the second 1:57 a.m. He was 1 pound, 11.7 ounces, and he was 12 inches long. They took him straight away and put him over on his bed and just like put the breathing tube in him. While I was getting like my stitches and stuff done, Dylan went downstairs with him, and they took him to the NICU. So I didn't even really get to have the chance to see him. Dylan took some pictures to show me, and I'll put them up on the screen here. This was the first pictures I saw of him. A couple hours later, they were like, okay, you can go see him now. So I tried to get up to go downstairs and see him. I ended up passing out in the toilet and like seizing out, and so they didn't let me go, and I had to wait a few more hours before I was able to go downstairs and see him. And then finally they wheeled me down, and I got to see him for the first time. It was just like so crazy seeing him and like knowing like that he came out of me and that he was okay right now. They told me that he had a 90% chance of survival, which was amazing compared to what they had said before. They also ended up being wrong about everything they said during my entire pregnancy. He didn't have Down syndrome. He didn't have club feet. He didn't have a heart condition. He didn't have spina bifida. He didn't have any of those things. He was perfectly healthy and normal besides being premature. Now it is 1 month later almost. He is 3 weeks and 5 days old right now, and he is doing amazing. Throughout his stay in the NICU, he has had some challenges, I will say. The first day, he got his breathing tube took out and he got switched to nasal cannulas. And then after that, he's just done pretty well. I guess like the first week he was in honeymoon phase, they called it. He was just like breathing awesome. Like he was at 21%, which is what me and you breathe. And he didn't really need much help from the ventilator. About a week after he was born, he started doing worse. He was having, you know, breathing episodes and Brady's more often, which is Brady's is where their heart rate drops, which is expected for premature babies. But he was just having a lot more episodes than what he was originally having. And that scared me and Dylan because whenever you have a baby this little, you don't know, I'll just put it this way, each day just counts so much because you don't know when it could be their last. It's just super scary to think about that. But anyways, he ended up having a brain bleed, a grade 3 and a grade 4 brain bleed. And they said, you know, we don't really know what to expect from this. He could have mild problems, major problems, we don't know. Like there could be a chance of having cerebral palsy and just other neurological problems. Since then, his brain bleed has gotten better. He's actually having another ultrasound today on it just to make sure that everything's cleared up. I've been pumping my milk and feeding him that way. He has a feeding tube in, and he started out like really little, like only getting like 1 milliliter and then 2 milliliters, and like they just would gradually go up every day. Now he is on continuous feeds and he is eating 7 milliliters every hour. So he's getting almost 6 ounces a day. He's finally starting to put on some weight again. He is 2 pounds and 4 ounces right now. And last time I checked, he was 13 inches long. We're hoping that he gets to come home in February with us. So far, it's looking like he'll get to, but you never really know in the NICU because things change so much. We get to hold him every single day for like an hour. It just sucks that he's so far away from us because every single day we're making that 3-hour trip back and forth. It's worth it, of course, just to see him, but it just sucks. I'm thankful that he's up there, but it just sucks. And I'm also kind of still mad at myself. Even though I know it's like not really my fault, I'm mad at myself for having the incompetent cervix. I'm mad at myself for not being able to hold him in longer. It just really sucks because we tried so long for him, and I just wanted to have like this perfect pregnancy and this perfect birth and all of these things, and it just wasn't at all what I imagined. It just feels like really unfair, but I know that everything happens for a reason, and I'm trusting in God about it, and I'm trusting him that everything will be okay. I will talk more about our NICU experience in another video. This one's more of just like my birth story and like my, you know, like labor experience. So I will be posting another video pretty soon of just like him growing like from day 1 to, you know, 1 month old, and I'll be posting that and just like talk about everything that's happened since his NICU stay. So if you guys want to like know more in depth about how he's doing, then be sure to check that video out. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope this video reaches somebody that needs it. Like I said in the beginning, I was looking for so many videos of people that went through this experience, and I just couldn't really find that many. So I really hope that this video helps somebody out, and just know that you're not alone. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!